Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's me, Stateside, and we've got a new video for you guys today. It is going to be taking a look at quite a few different things. We're going to take a look at the transfer window closing. We're going to talk about some of the signings that were made on deadline day. We're going to talk about the red card with Declan Rice. We're going to talk about Liverpool versus Manchester United, Bournemouth versus Everton, and we're going to talk about finally the sack race. What is that going to look like here in the next coming months? Who's in trouble as a manager? Who's going to be okay? Who's going to make it out the other side? Let's discuss who is in and who is out at managers. But without further ado, let's start this off with the most exciting day of the transfer window, I think, entirely. Not just based on like the anticipation, but also what came through on that day. Unbelievable signings made and sells made on transfer deadline day this year. Unbelievable stuff. I'm going to try not to make as many cuts as I maybe normally do in videos. I'm going to try to make this as straight through as I can. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, so bear with me here. It's a little new concept since we're taking away Sunday sit down. As you may have seen, I've made a post. That's the first time I ever made a post on YouTube, so hopefully you saw that and you understood kind of where I was coming from. Without an editor, it makes it a little more difficult, but I do want to make these videos a little longer, maybe a little bit more quality, a little bit better research, things like that for you guys, of course. But without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's get right into it with our first signing. It's going to be a trilogy. Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling, and Reece Nelson trilogy. Nelson obviously going to Fulham. You've got Jadon Sancho going to Chelsea, and then Raheem Sterling leaving Chelsea and going to Arsenal on loan. A really good deal for Arsenal on loan as well. So starting off, this all comes to fruition because Jadon Sancho is able to go to Chelsea, which means Chelsea is able to get rid of Sterling with ease without any worries because they've got this player coming in that's going to be a very expensive loan. And then you've got Arsenal like, okay, now we can send Reece Nelson out to a Fulham and potentially sell him off next summer with a little bit better value to him since he's getting more regular minutes. As for Sancho to Chelsea, I don't think this is a great move. I think that they're just full on wingers. I think if they were going to go spend money, they should have went and bought Osimhen. Obviously, now Osimhen's going on loan to Galatasaray, which is like, how are they now getting a loan? Yeah, I thought it was just sell him and be done with it. Napoli obviously holding off for how they value him, and now Osimhen is going to be going into another year of not getting his move away from Napoli. And they got rid of him, though, I guess is one thing to do. They did get him playing somewhere, so he will maintain his value. But he's playing Galatasaray in the Turkish league, so I'm not quite sure what that will hold in the transfer market, of course. As for Raheem Sterling to Arsenal, I like this one. I like this one because Arsenal's not even covering half his wages. I think the loan fee, if they even paid one, was very, very small. I think the impact for him as a player, I think he's going to really find his feet once again. And I do believe that for Reece Nelson, the minutes are going to be so crucial for him moving forward. I think that all three of these moves are going to be fantastic loan moves for the player, for the club that is receiving them, except for Chelsea. So I think Chelsea's getting the really bad end of the stick here again, just because they have too many wingers. They've got Pedro Neto, Madueke, who they didn't get rid of this window that they wanted to get rid of. I would have not gotten rid of him anyways. You've got Mudryk on the left. You've got Cole Palmer can play on either wing, but can also play as a 10. So there's just a lot of players in Chelsea's squad that doesn't make much sense. I lied, I did cut. I needed a sip of water. What are you going to do? Whatever. But anyways, let's move on to the next transfer. Ivan Toney moving along to somewhere in Saudi Arabia. I can't quite remember what club it was for here, if I can find it real quick. Ivan Toney. Maybe I can't. Yeah, there it is. 42 million euros for Ivan Toney to go to Al Ahly in the Saudi Pro League. I mean, for Brentford, that's a fantastic signing. For fantastic sell, I think. Obviously you want the 60 million that you've been talking about for years now, but 1 year left on his contract, looking like he was going to leave on a free, and he was willing to stay for another year and leave on a free, and you get 42 million for him. I think that that's a fantastic bit of business for Brentford. I think Ivan Toney, this might be the end we see of him in the England squad. I think it'll be very difficult for him to make it back into that squad as he leaves for Saudi Arabia. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Does Toney stay in Saudi? Is this a 1 or 2 year thing where he then moves back to the Premier League when he's 29, 30 years old? I think it'll be difficult for him to make a move back to the Premier League. for a club up the table, obviously, because there'll be other options in the market by then. So I'm not quite sure if a 30-year-old Ivan Toney has the same value as maybe a 28-year-old Ivan Toney, and is Al Ali ever going to even sell him in the first place, or is he going to have to force his way out, kind of like a Jordan Henderson did when he was in Saudi Arabia and has now moved to Ajax? Just have to wait and see. I think that this Ivan Toney deal, I hate it for his career. I think it's fantastic for Brentford to get this sell across the table. And signed, sealed, delivered. I think that getting rid of a player like Ivan Toney is, hurts them in the short term. I think Embuemo, I did mention at the beginning of the year, was going to be the most important player for Brentford this year. Even if Ivan Toney stayed, I think he scored a brace at the weekend, right in front of Ivan Toney. So I think that just kind of shows where I'm coming from. I think that it's a good deal for Brentford. I think they'll be able to reinvest that come January and come next summer. Of course, if they maintain their position in the Premier League. And then up next, let me know what you guys think about these deals, because I think both sells here are fantastic. Scott McTominay and Eddie Nketiah both sold for about 30 million euros to Crystal Palace for Nketiah and Napoli for McTominay. Neither of these players were really going to get minutes. Neither of these players were going to really make an impact for their club. So obviously, third choice striker being Nketiah, and then a midfielder with the insert of Ugarte. Is really McTominay going to play in the 6 or the 8? You've got Mainu ahead of him. You've got Ericsson, who's been playing as an 8. You've got Mason Mount, who's been playing as an 8. You've got Casemiro still ahead of him, although I think Casemiro probably needs to be out the door. I'd almost terminate that contract. He's been playing so badly. I think I'd rather pull an academy player up like they did at halftime than play him once again. But we'll just have to obviously wait and see there. Another bit of business done at the end of the transfer window is Crystal Palace making the move for Maxime Lacroix. Obviously played at Wolfsburg under Glasner before. I think his pace, his strength, his athleticism will transfer over seamlessly to the Premier League. I think Lacroix is going to be a fantastic bit of business for Crystal Palace. And I think this one was such an easy, clear move for Palace to make that I really don't have too much else to say about it. I think Glasner, the familiarity, I think Glasner's players that he's gone and gotten from his previous clubs have been successes. I think the transfer business at Crystal Palace has been very good over these last few years. Obviously, players like Eze, Olise, Adam Wharton just came in and has made an impact. Players like that are just unreal. Obviously, Ismaili Sarr needs to take a step up in his career. Can he do that under Glasner? Daichi Kamada has played under Glasner previously, and now we've got a player like Maxime Lacroix coming in to play center back next to Mark Guéhi and Chris Richards as well. I'm so sorry. But our last transfer that we're going to discuss is Aaron Ramsdale to Southampton. I think for Ramsdale, if he wants to make it back into the England setup, this is fantastic for him. I think Arsenal got a good fee for it. I think Southampton are getting a fantastic goalkeeper that wants to be there. Hell, he was at their championship playoff match at Wembley wearing a Hagrid suit. I don't understand the joke behind it, but I guess it's a disguise. And now he's signing his contract wearing that same suit. So, everyone seems happy in this deal. So I think this is a fantastic bit of business. I think Ramsdale is going to be very busy. We saw him make, I think, 4 or 5 saves against whoever they played at the weekend. I can't quite remember. Still lost 3-1, I believe it was. But, staying busy. And I think that this will be important for him going forward if he wants to make it into the England squad in future tournaments. Whether that's as Pickford's backup or potentially replacing him. Obviously, with the disasters in midfield and defense at the weekend, the build-up play for Southampton is not there. So if you're looking for a ball-playing goalkeeper, Southampton doesn't have a team for a player like Ramsdale to play out the back like he would like to do. Obviously, Russell Martin also wants to play out of the back, but he doesn't have a team to do so. And we saw that again this weekend where they turned the ball over, I think, on 2 of the 3 goals and just handed it to the other team. The next topic we have is the opening game of the weekend, Arsenal versus Brighton. 1-1 final score there, but really the full story is about the Declan Rice red card. Obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan. Obviously, I have my feelings about that, and we're going to get right into that match and my feelings towards that. First of all, I want to say the connection between Kai Havertz and Bukayo Saka is going to be unreal this season. I think if we look at goals and assists combined between 2 players, I think Saka and Havertz are going to lead the league in that category. So whether that's Havertz assisting Saka or Saka assisting Havertz, I think that they're going to lead the league in those partnership goals for the season. And that's saying a lot considering Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland and the partnership that they have there. Obviously, very good first half from Arsenal. I think that was a fantastic performance for the team. I was hoping they would get a second one early on during the match. Obviously, I think they were deserving of a second goal even after the red card, which we'll talk about here at this very moment. 49th minute, foul occurred. Declan Rice fouls, I believe it was Veltman. Balls pushed forward. Declan Rice kicks it with his right foot. You've all seen it by now on Twitter, YouTube, whatever else, whatever other platforms you're watching these highlights on. He kind of taps the ball off the field. Veltman clears him out, just takes it out. And then we see a red card issue, second yellow card issued to Declan Rice, and nothing issued to Veltman. Well, 9 minutes later, we know João Pedro goes and scores the tying goal, and that game ends 1-1, with both teams attacking at the end, looking like either team could have scored to put the game away. But let's talk about the red card. I think it is completely unjust red card. If you look at, I mean, obviously I'm an Arsenal fan again, but bias aside, the ball's moving. And that's not something that bias to say. The ball is moving as Rice touches it. As Veltman is approaching it to make a free kick, the ball is still moving. And even if he touches it, even if he doesn't touch it, the ball is moving when Veltman hits that free kick. That being said, that would be an illegal free kick, which means it was not an issue with Declan Rice. If the ball was still and he kicks it, then I say yes, second yellow card, totally fair. Okay, but let's say okay, fine, Declan Rice gets sent off anyways. Just because the referee's coming to give a player a yellow card doesn't give Veltman the right to completely clear him out and take him out with no repercussions. I understand you can say, well, he was going to kick the ball. Well, if there's all these factors that are in play, okay, so Veltman's just clearing him out anyways throughout all these factors. We're not punishing him. I feel like there should have been at least a yellow card issued to Veltman, potentially even more, because even then he's taking the illegal free kick. He's then time wasting. João Pedro, again, another player who, if we look at him from the first half, where he gets that yellow card for clearing the ball halfway up the field as he runs it out of right after he runs it out of play, and the referee doesn't even issue a warning. We see that happen in the first half. He gets another yellow card in the 96th minute. And what does that mean for Brighton? You know, Brighton are a club that's facing tough opposition, really challenging for higher up the table this year. Arsenal are going to be missing Declan Rice for the North London Derby here at Tottenham in the coming weeks, obviously right after international break. We look at Brighton's schedule. You know, João Pedro missing for Ipswich at home, probably not a big deal to them. Probably not a big deal at all. But obviously Arsenal faces the brunt of this punishment, and I'll be interested to see if there is any statements put out by the referee association or anything of that sort, or by the Premier League there. But, you know, Arsenal 1-1 against a very good Brighton squad that probably could have went on and won that game given the circumstances of playing down two men, you know, playing 12 versus 10. I don't want to get too complaining, though. You know, even then, good battle by Arsenal. Fantastic way to battle back from Brighton nonetheless. Obviously, I think that goal doesn't happen with Rice on the field, but can only say so much about that situation. We move on. Arsenal versus Tottenham, next matchup for them. Brighton face Ipswich right after the break as well. Actually, Brighton faces Ipswich on the 14th of September. Okay, yeah, there's actually 14th of September, so it's about 2 weeks until the next match, which is going to be awful break. So one weekend, then the following weekend we're back. So that's nice. It's only 1 weekend off really from the Premier League, so I can't be too upset. But anyways, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next matchup. Liverpool versus Manchester United. Liverpool 3, Manchester United nothing. A game that just showed complete dominance from Liverpool in that matchup. It felt like it was never close for Manchester United at any moment. It was complete one-sided match, and especially at Old Trafford. Let's talk a little bit about that matchup. First of all, Casemiro should never see the pitch for Manchester United again unless half of the team is injured and his position, and even then I would play somebody out of position before I play him again. Unbelievably poor performance and it just doesn't belong at a top level in the Premier League. As Jamie Carragher said, leave the football before the football leaves you, and the football has left Casemiro. Unreal. And I'm sorry, we have to talk about his wife posting the photo of his trophy haul in the on social media, because that makes it even more embarrassing of a performance from Casemiro. I don't know why he would not why she would post that in the first place, but you know, it's pretty embarrassing after his team just loses 3-0. He gets sent off, he gets taken off at halftime and doesn't even come back out to sit on the bench. He played that poorly. They just said, "All right, see ya, get out of here." I'm curious if he stayed in the locker room. Did he just go home? I'm very interested to know what Casemiro did after being subbed off, and what happened in the locker room is an even bigger worry. Was there a scene made? Did something happen that caused him to not come back out and sit on the bench with the team? As for the rest of the situation, Liverpool, fantastic performance. That midfield trio is unbelievable, unreal performance. Arne Slot is doing a great job at Liverpool. There was a lot of concern. You never want to be the guy that follows the guy. You always want to be the guy after the guy that follows the guy, if that makes sense here. But you don't want to be the guy that follows Jurgen Klopp. You wanted, hypothetically speaking, to be the guy that follows Arne Slot, because it's hard to be the follow-up to someone that was so great. It's going to be hard for the person that follows Pep Guardiola. It was hard for Unai Emery when he followed Arsene Wenger. You don't want to be the guy to follow the guy, is kind of what my takeaway is with this Liverpool squad. And, he has done a fantastic job. Obviously, a difficult transfer window, but he's turning a lot of these players that were pretty average into fantastic players. Would still like to see more from Szoboszlai, but Gravenberch, unbelievable turnaround for him this season. Just unreal player. There was always talent there, but unreal player. Robertson and Trent, Van Dijk, Konate, I mean, you know what to expect from them. Luis Diaz, again, another fantastic performance from him, and Mo Salah just doing Mo Salah things again. But the big outlook on this is what it does for Manchester United. Does Erik ten Hag finish this season? Does Erik ten Hag make it to Christmas with Manchester United? Does he even make it to October at this rate? Because things are looking bad at Manchester United. Regardless of what their results tell you, regardless of what he says, she says, who anyone says, you have to look at it as a whole. Manchester United were out looking for a replacement last season. They didn't get it. They said, "Okay, you can come back, Erik ten Hag. You can come back. We're gonna change up your coaching staff a little bit. We're gonna change up the people over you with the operations and the footballing recruitment and the those types of positions. We're going to bring in these people over you to help make these things happen, so you don't have to, we can take that off your plate and you just focus on the management." Well, he's won one of his 3 matches, lost to Brighton in the final moment of the match, got dominated by Liverpool. Where do you see, does it feel different from last year? No, and that's the biggest concern, is nothing's different from last year for for Manchester United. And despite trophies can only heal so much, Erik ten Hag, at some point you have to go out there, you have to play a fun style, because also this is something that's gonna sound awful coming from an Arsenal fan, but we watch soccer to be entertained, correct? I don't think anyone will disagree with that. Do those 2 trophies make up for the fact that nobody is being entertained by the way Erik ten Hag plays and setups his teams? No. Mourinho makes up for it because he wins tons of trophies and he is the entertainment. Mourinho and his antics are the entertainment that he brings to his side. And his teams will go score goals, but losing 3-0 at home in front of your fans, that's not how Manchester United needs to play. And it's also it's about how you lose, and that's not how you lose, is how Manchester United lost on Sunday. But that's all. I don't want to beat a dead horse. This is obviously something that's going to happen. We're going to discuss here in a little bit later as we talk about the sack race. But let's talk about our final game that we're going to highlight this weekend: Everton versus Bournemouth. For the 3rd season in a row, Everton have not won a game in August. In fact, this year they did not even pick up a point in the month of August, and it's just not very hopeful performances. They lost 3-0 on the opening day of the season to a very good Brighton team, lost 4-0 to a very good Tottenham team, and it looked like they were going to pick up all 3 points against Bournemouth, and then they concede in the 87th, and things get kind of tense. And then they concede again in the 92nd, and you're like, great, we're only walking away with a point. And then in the 96th minute, the final minute of added time, you go and concede a winner to Luis Sinisterra. I'm sorry, but Everton, this might be the end of your luck. This might be the year that Everton goes down. Sean Dyche, can he keep them up? I'm not sure. I'm not certain that he can. And it's looking worse and worse and worse for Everton this season. Taking a look at that lineup for Everton as well, just very poor. Tired legs in the midfield during that match. If you look at it, two substitutes were made during the match from Sean Dyche. Taking a look at his bench, though, I mean, James Garner, a young defensive midfielder left on the bench, or midfielder left on the bench. Could you have subbed him on for a player like Jack Harrison and kept, a Dwight McNeil, Doucouré, and Beto as your kind of front three, if you will, and then, have Beto with, or Beto, whatever, and then Doucouré and McNeil, and then you have Tim, or I'm not going to butcher his name, Tim, and Gay, Idrissa Gay, with a player like James Garner as like a midfield 3, and then you have a front 3 of McNeil, Doucouré, and Beto, as we mentioned before. Just somebody to be able to press in that midfield, because if you watch the final attack of Bournemouth, they kind of just run across the field, and nobody really presses up, and he's able to just play the ball out to the wing and then play that cross. I can't remember who exactly made the cross to Sinisterra. It was Kluivert. The ball is able to get played out to Kluivert, who then is able to play a cross, very uncontested cross, to the back post for Sinisterra to head home. It looked like Pickford was going to save them there at the end to keep a point. He did make a big save just maybe a minute or two before that. But Everton, a lot needs to change at that club. From the ownership, a stadium change is coming. And I'm not saying that's something that needs to happen, but a stadium change is coming for Everton. But ownership needs to change. The team needs to change. The manager may need to change. A lot of things need to change for Everton to be successful in the Premier League. And the Premier League is where Everton belongs. As for Bournemouth, wow, what a match. What a performance from them to come back there. I mean, Luis Sinisterra, just, wow. Looking like a bargain now. He was on loan last year, and then, Semenyo getting a big play there. Lewis Cook scoring, I believe it was his first Premier League goal, is what I read online. I'm not quite sure if that's correct, but again, unreal. But is Dominic Calvert-Lewin going to be able to do some heroics to save them this season? Is Beto going to find his feet? Is Armando Broja coming in going to make a difference? 4-4-2 moving forward for Everton. I think you put Beto and DCL, or Broja and DCL, or Beto and DCL, or whatever you need to do. Beto and Broja, and then McNeil, Harrison, Iliman and Day. Is he going to make a difference on the left wing? I don't know what Everton need to do, but they need to figure it out soon rather than later, or they may be in a hole that they can't climb out of. Finally, as we look at the future of the Premier League, we're going to talk about the sack race, and we're going to talk about the 8 managers currently leading the sack race, and my thoughts on each one, on who I think will and who I think won't be sacked. But without further ado, let's talk about the first one. Again, Erik ten Hag, or tied for first technically, Erik ten Hag and Sean Dyche. One's currently sat in 14th with a win, 2 goals, 5 conceded, and the other one has 2 goals scored, 10 conceded in Everton. I just don't see a world where either of them survive this season. But do I think they will be the first ones? I don't know. I'll give you who I think is going to be the first manager sacked at the end of this video. So hold on, and we will get into that. But both of those managers definitely not going to make it through this season, I feel like. And I think they are both heavily favored to be sacked this season. Or I say heavily favored. That sounds like awful. Like, yeah, I favor them to get sacked. That's the best word I could come up with, but whatever. Third on the sack race is Enzo Maresca. I see a world where he gets sacked, but I don't see where it makes sense to sack him. But most of what Chelsea does doesn't make sense. So I think this one could potentially happen as well. by the end of this year. But I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. Chelsea are currently 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. Have been scoring goals, have second most goals in the league, tied with Liverpool. More goals than Brighton, more goals than Arsenal, more goals than Brentford, uh, more goals than Tottenham, so on and so forth. So they're currently 11th in the table, but, have been scoring goals. It's just their defense that's the issue at Chelsea. Up next, we got Russell Mount. Up next, we got Russell Martin of Southampton, and I don't see a world in where he gets sacked. I think that Southampton, their transfer windows are just built on signing players that will get them back up to the Premier League the following year, and that's exactly what they've done again this year. There's no survival hopes in that team except for the signing of Aaron Ramsdale on loan. Excuse me, not loan. The signing of Aaron Ramsdale, period. On a permanent. The signing of Aaron Ramsdale is the only signing that I see being a really Premier League level signing in that team. But I don't think Russell Martin will be punished for that. I would hope not, but who knows what Southampton do. Things get really, really bad here by Christmas. Another manager I hope isn't going to be sacked this year based on the situation that he's been placed into is Steve Cooper. He hasn't been backed very heavily by Leicester City's ownership. He also hasn't been given many opportunities to really implement his system because he hasn't had the players. He just kind of has to work with what he's got and survive. And that's what I think he could do, but I also think it'll be a challenge. And if he does go down with Leicester, I think he should be allowed to manage them in the championship next year. We'll just have to wait and see. Marco Silva is the one, two, three, four, five, sixth manager on this list. I don't see a world where he gets sacked at all. I think he's pretty much a Fulham legend at this point. Obviously, that doesn't mean he's safe from being sacked, but I don't see a world where he gets sacked. It just doesn't make sense for him to go, in my opinion. Up next, we've got Nuno Espirito Santo. I think this one's a heavy, heavy, heavy possibility. I think he's at Forest right now. I could see Forest getting off to a very slow start this season. Obviously, currently they are set on where's Forest? 1 win, 2 draws. They haven't lost a game yet, but knowing the way that a manager like Nuno plays, it could be a very long, boring season for Forest, given the talent that they have. And I could see them come, April, March, be, 15th position. And then it's like, all right, we need to figure something out. Panic buttons get hit after they lost 5 straight. And then Nuno's out the door. I don't see it being as quick of a sacking as his time at Tottenham, for example. But it will be interesting to see what happens there. And the final manager, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, Eddie Howe is our 8th manager. I don't see a world. I don't want to say I don't, but with ownership changing kind of a little bit at Newcastle, I could see them saying, you know what, let's start fresh. Let's bring in a new manager. Let's bring in our guy, the guy we want. I'll be interesting to see who it is. Pochettino's going to the U.S. job. Is Tuchel going to come take the Newcastle job? That would be an interesting one, his return to the Premier League. But it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens to Eddie Howe. I think Eddie Howe also could take the England job. Be interesting to see who takes that position moving forward. But Eddie Howe, I don't see a world where he really gets sacked based on performances. Currently looking at the table, Newcastle are 2 wins, 1 draw. I don't think they've played very poorly. Scored 4 goals, only conceded twice. So I don't see a world really where it makes sense to sack him. Taking a look at the matches they've played, they have beat Tottenham, they drew with Bournemouth, and they beat Southampton. So I really don't see a way that you can sack Eddie Howe based on those performances. I think that the first manager to be sacked will be Erik ten Hag. I just don't see a way he can recover from the situation at Manchester United. I think it's kind of crumbling in on him. I don't think he'll be sacked in the next 3 weeks. I don't think he'll be sacked by the end of September, but I could see come end of October, if Manchester United still bottom half of the table, I could see them making a move for a different manager in the likes of a Thomas Tuchel, a Graham Potter, somebody of that likes. Not somebody that's going to be really flashy or maybe the most exciting, but I do think that a change will be made at Manchester United first. But obviously, if the situation at Everton continues, it could also be Sean Dyche. So either one, I think it's kind of a toss-up right now. They're the two favorites, obviously, for good reason, both coming out struggling early this season, and both have a lot of pressure on them early on. And that right there is my analysis of the deadline day, the Arsenal match, the Manchester United defeat, and the Bournemouth comeback against Everton, as well as the Premier League sack race. If you want to see more stuff like that, where we analyze post-match situations, moments, what they mean for the future, as well as some of the key things throughout the season, such as the sack race, such as deadline day, so on and so forth. That's what the breakdown is for. So we're trying to kind of condense a bunch of things into one video instead of doing a bunch of different videos. I will leave chat like little markers throughout the video so you can go to different things that you want to hear about. If you're not interested in maybe everything, but you want to hear about one or two things, you can still do that as well in the video. But if you want to see more stuff like this, go ahead, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another video. We're gonna do Friday Flair is gonna be most overrated players of the Premier League season coming into this Premier League season. Players that are overhyped or expected to do more than I think that they actually will. But if you want to see that, hit that subscribe button as well, and comment down below videos you'd like to see in the future or things you'd like for me to talk about in future videos. Anyways, peace.